The Trump administration is pushing for colleges and universities to disclose more detailed admissions data, sparking a debate about transparency and the use of race in admissions policies. But here's where it gets controversial. While many institutions have reduced the emphasis on race in their admissions processes, the government is now demanding more information, including demographic data and test scores from schools like Harvard University. In a memo signed by Trump, the administration expressed concerns about the lack of available data and the use of diversity statements and other racial proxies. The memo argues that greater transparency is crucial for uncovering any unlawful practices and eliminating harmful racial hierarchies in society. This directive extends the administration's pressure campaign against colleges, applying its demands to any institution that receives federal aid. New data sharing requirements have been included in recent agreements between the federal government and Columbia and Brown universities. These agreements highlight the government's interest in obtaining as much raw information as possible from colleges. Harvard is still in negotiations with the Trump administration regarding these new demands. According to Brendan Cantwell, a professor at Michigan State University who specializes in higher education, the admissions data requested by the Trump administration could be used to target schools in future lawsuits or investigations. The government might selectively share information with allies who could then sue schools they believe are not following the law or influence them by suggesting that their decisions are being monitored. This could also allow the government to set the terms for how institutions select students. The memo directs Education Secretary Linda McMahon to expand the scope of required reporting to ensure transparency in admissions, starting with the 2025 to 2026 school year. While the specific reporting requirements are not detailed, they must be established within the next 120 days. The memo also asks the Education Department to revamp and publicize data collected in the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System, IPEDS, and to verify the accuracy of the information submitted by institutions. It's unclear how these new requirements will affect colleges' admissions practices. Schools already submit substantial information to IPEDS, including enrollment, graduation rates, and financial data, as mandated by the Higher Education Act of 1965. They are also prohibited from considering race in admissions, and students are not required to report their race on applications. Following the Supreme Court's ruling 2 years ago, which focused on Harvard, many colleges made changes to their admissions processes to comply with the law while still maintaining diverse student bodies. However, the number of first-year Black students at top schools across the country, including 11 of the most competitive colleges in Massachusetts, dropped sharply in the following academic year. For example, the share of Black first-year students at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology fell from 14% to 5%, and at Boston University, it dropped from 8.5% to 3%. Conservative groups who argue that affirmative action discriminates against white and Asian students are using the Supreme Court victory to eliminate any remaining diversity-related initiatives and policies on college campuses. Some accuse universities of finding alternative ways to consider race in admissions, such as through personal statements, and are advocating for a return to merit-based admissions that focus more on factors like test scores. Edward Bloom, president of Students for Fair Admissions, which led the legal fight to overturn affirmative action, expressed enthusiasm about the administration's requirement for colleges to disclose admissions data. He believes this data will help public interest litigation groups prevent colleges from circumventing the law. The Trump administration has also expanded the ban on race-conscious selection to areas such as hiring, scholarships, and graduation ceremonies. In May, Josh Gruenbaum, an official with the U.S. General Services Administration, instructed federal agencies to terminate all contracts with Harvard, claiming that the university's admissions and hiring practices violated anti-discrimination laws. Brown and Columbia universities agreed to share data about applicants' standardized test scores. grade point averages, and demographic information, including race, as part of their recent deals with the federal government. They also committed to publicizing admissions statistics. When contacted for comment, more than a dozen Massachusetts colleges, including Harvard, declined to respond or declined to comment on Trump's latest moves. Jonathan Fansmith, Senior Vice President of the American Council on Education, which represents about 1,600 colleges and universities, noted that schools already provide substantial information to the federal database. He suggested that the new measure might add some burden and complications for institutions, but would not significantly impact the administration's goals. Fansmith also pointed out that because admissions officers often use measures to ensure they do not know the race of applicants, determining whether schools are discriminating is not easily captured in a spreadsheet. This debate raises important questions about the balance between transparency and the complexity of admissions processes. How can colleges maintain diversity without directly considering race? And what role should the government play in monitoring these practices? These are issues that will likely continue to be discussed and debated in the coming years.